Welcome, everyone. Thanks to some of our regulars and any new people who may be joining us today. This is one of our Friday art-based meditations. In case you don't know, we are offering meditation sessions Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12:15, and every Friday we have a focus artwork from the Freer and Sackler collection, which just allows us to go a little deeper and be inspired by some visual art in our meditation practice. So today we have a really beautiful artwork from Japan to share with you. And here with us, we have Japan Foundation Assistant Curator at the Museum, Frank Feltons, who's going to introduce us to our focus work today. Then we'll have the meditation session with Phil, and then there'll be time at the end for us to take your questions. So stick around for that. So I'll turn it over now to Frank.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can actually see the artwork that I'll be talking about. Here it is. And you can also do this at home, basically. And I encourage you to actually do this at home. Go on our website and, we have our entire collection available on our collections online. And there you can access the records just like this one. And today's work is this fantastic, beautiful painting by Hokusai. And the artist Katsushika Hokusai, and if you've been to the museum, you may have encountered this work, which is in the final gallery, actually. And Hokusai really was, as you know, one of Japan's most influential painters and still remains so today. And this work is a real favorite among our visitors, simply because it's so atmospheric and so romantic in many ways. And think about that Hokusai made this painting at age 80. So he was already quite advanced in age, and age 80 was an incredibly senior age at his time in the early 19th century in Japan, where the average life expectancy of people was much shorter than that. And Hokusai was actually going to live on until 90. So he lived an incredibly long age, but he himself had wrote about his wish of living until the age of 100 and even 110. You can never get enough. And he basically said of himself, only at the age of 110 will I achieve the kind of mastery, the level of mastery as an artist, that every stroke and every dot of my brush comes to life. So he was basically prophesizing that he would be having divine powers in painting. But he was already very much an incredible painter at age 80, if you look at this beautiful work. And it's been discussed by scholars back and forth. It's a very romantic image, in light of what Hokusai usually paints. I mean, usually his works are so ferocious and have a lot of energy and power. But I think this painting does have that too. So if you look at its entirety, it's filled with sound. And, I encourage you to just listen to the painting a little bit while we're looking at it. Notice the rustling leaves here in the willow, then the gushing stream beneath the boy, and then imagine that intermingled with the sound of his flute, and perhaps even with the thunder of this tempest coming in on the upper left up here. So this painting is really a painting filled with melodies and the sounds of nature and man-made melodies as well. And this is really, I love the fact that this boy is actually supposed to be fishing in the river, I would say. This is what the basket is for. It's to gather the fish and bring them home. But he chooses to instead play the flute, which is such a beautiful and way to basically, spend the time and ignore your work and your chores. And just a little bit finally about the history of this work, how it came into our collection. Charles Freer was incredibly interested in Hokusai, and not so much in his prints as he was interested in his paintings, actually. So he wanted the traces of Hokusai's brush in his collection. And this is one of the first paintings, actually, that he purchased by Hokusai. And so when Freer bought this in 1898, Hokusai had been dead for almost exactly 50 years. So he was almost a contemporary painter, if you will, in Freer's own time. And he got this work from the great American pioneer of Japanese or East Asian art studies, Ernest Fenollosa's collection, who brought it with him from Japan to Boston, where he resided. So there's a wonderful provenance to the work as well. And at age 80, finally, when Hokusai was living, just about that time, his studio burned down. So he moved around almost 100 times. And so this work was made at a time of personal hardships and crisis. And I think, this gives us a little bit of a time to pause and think about the work and its deeper implications. And I want to end with that note and hand the floor over to Philip.
Thank you so much, Frank. That was wonderful. Well, everybody, I'm pleased to join you. My name is Philip Bender. I have the privilege and honor of offering meditations here every Wednesday, 12:15 Eastern Daylight Time. But I'm really pleased today to join you the Friday so that we can take some time together and explore and savor this work, Boy Viewing Mount Fuji by Master Hokusai. In today's practice, I will be asking you to employ your imagination and your senses, as Frank even indicated about the sound. We'll employ our senses in some other ways as well to experience this work in some interesting ways. Meanwhile, I invite you to suspend judgment and analysis and, the inner critic, so to speak, so that we might directly experience this work and allow insights to be received directly from it. You might say that we'll be setting aside our thinking about the object and move toward experiencing it more intimately. So, first things, let's prepare, get comfortable. That might be a comfortable seat with your spine tall or supported with the back of a chair. And endeavor to soften a bit, relax. Get comfortable. Check in with your seat. Heavy. And close your eyes. Now, part of our preparation will be to prepare mind and body. To do that, let's inhale, medium to full inhalation. Gently pause at the top of inhalation and then exhale. Repeat, inhaling. Pausing a moment. And exhaling. Do that again. Find this little rhythm, taking a medium to full inhalation, the brief pause at the top, and the exhalation. 2 more breaths in this fashion. When you finish that last exhalation, let go of the manipulation of the breath. Return to natural breathing. And let yourself descend a little bit. Descend from the head into the quiet stillness underneath the thinking mind. Now, as further preparation, we'll do the following. Bring your attention to your feet for a moment. Your ankles, your lower legs, your knees, your thighs, and your hips. Each time you bring your attention to a body part, consider that you're making the body more receptive. Come to the belly, the gut. Feel the gut. The chest. The heart inside the chest. Sense your hands, wrists, forearms, upper arms, and shoulders. Finally, your neck and your head. Sense the whole body receptive. Now, gently open your eyes, and with your body available, be with the whole image in front of you. Still settled underneath the thinking mind. What comes forward from the work to you? Good. Now let's try a little experiment. We're going to zoom in. Try that again. Zoom in. There we go. To the mountain. Look at the mountain. Be in its presence. And you might notice right away its peak, right? The very top. That narrowness at the top and the snow. But see if you could become especially aware and receptive to the massiveness of its base. Can you sense, as if you were in the presence of the mountain, its solidity, its stability? Its earthiness? And then endeavor to find those same qualities in you. Can you feel the weightiness, solidity in yourself? In your bones, for example. In your gut. Be with that feeling quality or sense memory for a moment. Your body as a mountain. Now take a look at the river. Imagine being in its presence. The waves undulating perhaps over hidden rocks. Notice the fluidity and the flow, the suppleness. Can you feel into these very same qualities, these water-like qualities in you? This might show up as a sense of fluidity in the joints, like your ankles, your knees, your hips. Stay with this feeling, the water-like quality of you for a moment. It's different from the earthiness. It has its own unique sensory signature, the water-like quality in you. Now let's move our attention to these beautiful leaves. be in their presence for a little bit. You might imagine the wind touching these leaves. You could perhaps even hear it. And notice their easy, carefree movement. Like a sweet, subtle dance. Now, can you bring forward air-like or wind-like qualities to your body? Perhaps that sensory feeling of a breeze touching your skin. Maybe even a breeze that moves through the chest wall and bathes the lungs. Sense the carefree, wind-like qualities in you. Now let's look beyond the leaves out into the vast sky. Can you be with the sky, attuned to its spaciousness? It's not quite cloudless, as we recall, but most of it is for the moment. And can you allow this spacious sky to inform your still and clear mind? Your cloudless mind. Be with that for a moment. Mind like a blue sky. Now we observe the boy. Seemingly fearless, certainly outgoing and expressive. As he plays his flute. And notice too, for a moment, his bare skin. Perhaps warmed by an unseen sun. Now, close your eyes and bring forward the sense memory of sunlight on your face. The sweet touch of radiant heat on your face. And see if you might bring that warmth to the chest. Now let's observe the whole image again. Having attended to each of its elements, certainly its objects, but also the elemental aspects. And observe this boy, balanced, but perfectly confident, fully trusting as the mountain seems to reach for him. The tree, nourished by river and soil, supports him. The leaves dance to the music of his flute. And the spacious sky holds all as he plays for her, for nature, as she embraces him. May we take time to slow down and receive the world around us through our senses. And may this receiving bring us into greater balance. And may, in our receiving, may we be reminded of how nature holds us, embraces us lovingly. Now, to close the meditation, I invite you to place left hand on the heart, right hand on top, and to bow to one another. Peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for leading us through that beautiful exploration. I love how you took us through each part of the painting. I was especially struck by the river. I don't think I'd ever spent enough time looking at the river in that painting before, and it's really extraordinary. So you revealed something new to me. If you have any thoughts or questions you'd like to share, please put them in the chat. And if Frank is here with us, and if you have any thoughts or reflections following that, any additional ideas about the painting you'd like to share with us now, please feel free to jump in.
Much rather hear some questions. I'm sure there are many.
We had one question from Adrian earlier about why we don't see the boy's face. So if you have any thoughts about that.
Right. I mean, actually, if you have a chance to see the exhibition, you'll notice that we have a sketch actually of the front side of the boy in the same gallery that was also done by Hokusai, who knows, ostensibly in preparation for this work. So you can actually see what Hokusai may have envisioned the front side to look like. But I think in an artistic sense, it is just so much more interesting and intriguing to be looking at the back and imagining the direction of his gaze. I mean, he is not interested in looking at us. He's interested in looking at Fuji. So much more important and so much more of a sight than anybody who could be standing behind him.
Yeah, exactly. And I put the link to that other work by Hokusai in the chat if anyone would like to see the sketch of the boy playing the flute facing forward. Rebecca asks, could you talk a bit more about the colors in the painting? That she's noticing it seems to her a bit monochromatic, but it's still really beautiful, subtle color.
Yeah, so it is polychromatic. I mean, right? I mean, there are lots of colors, but Hokusai uses his signature colors, and those are, hues of brown, hues of blue, and hues of green in this painting, in the same way as he employs them in many of his prints. I mean, this is basically his signature color palette. And but he uses them in this painting in an interesting and, as you say, very subtle way. I mean, he is applying them each pigment only very faintly, basically creating this, almost ethereal kind of atmosphere in the work. And in terms of Japanese pigments, I mean, they always come in powder form, right? I mean, they're not like you would think of oil paint, or Western traditional materials for painting. Japanese always come in powder, and they need to be mixed with animal glue, which you get from boiling antlers and hooves and these bones, these kinds of things. And to make them adhesive and to create a paste. And this is what Hokusai also did before. This nasty business also preceded the making of this lovely painting.
Chioma mentioned in the chat, the painting grew lighter and brighter as we explored each element. I love that comment. That's wonderful. It does take on more light the more you look and the more you see there. Also, Karen is asking about the brush strokes. She notices just how soft the tree is, but it sort of slashes across the scene. And also the clouds in the background seem kind of menacing to her.
That is exactly, I think, how Hokusai intended the painting to feel like. I mean, it's this really calm and contemplative scenery, but then if you look up to the upper left side, which by the Japanese direction of contemplating the painting would be at the very end of your gaze, right? Of the route that your gaze would take, you would start on the, probably in the center with the boy because it's so prominent, or Fuji, or you would look at the signature and then move your way upwards, basically. And so it's this slight, finale in this painting in a way that you see this beautiful, romantic, quiet in so many ways picture, and then you get a sense of what will disrupt this romantic atmosphere, which is very much like Hokusai. I mean, you cannot just be romantic. You have to add some kind of drumbeat into it, and some kind of crescendo. And so this painting, the dark clouds that you mentioned in the upper left are exactly that.
A couple people asked about the boy. Do we necessarily know that it's a boy, or is it just a child? And is he holding a fish?
Right. I don't know. I mean, he probably uses both hands to play the flute, which you would if you're a flute player. And so he is a boy for sure. I mean, that kind of haircut is not becoming of a girl. And, even if you are a tomboy of sorts, you wouldn't get a haircut like that, I suppose. And but what is interesting is, I mean, he's a lower class laborer's boy, right? But I mean, he's wearing this kimono with a very sumptuous, subtle but sumptuous pattern. So Hokusai basically cast him into this, almost, don't want to say princely attire, but something not exactly belonging to his class and to the reality that this boy would have faced in early 19th century Japan, which was a very harsh life, of course, for people of that social class. So, but Hokusai beautifies it and creates a very aestheticized image of reality, which is really also something he does in many other works as well.
Another question about what do we know of Hokusai's spiritual life? Did he practice any religion?
That's a question that I hear quite often, actually. Like virtually anybody of that time, I would say, Hokusai was religious and superstitious at the same time. And rather than thinking about his direct belief system, I always like to think about his superstitions, rather, because they, to me, tell you more about a person's character than a system of faith. And in this case, Hokusai had a habit, reportedly, of drawing an image of the mythical demon queller, Shoki in Japanese, or Chunkwe in my terrible Chinese pronunciation. We have an image of him in the exhibition, so you can see what he looks like, a fearsome protector of people from demons and ghosts. And in Edo Japan, Edo period Japan, so during Hokusai's time, the belief was such that the images of this particular being would prevent or cure illnesses, in particular smallpox for children, for example. But in Hokusai's case, he drew one of those images every day and thrust it out the window, crumbled it and thrust it out the window, of course, for eager fans to pick up. And so, quite a number of those paintings on sheet paper also survive. But this is Hokusai a little bit in a nutshell, right? A man who was not exactly your ordinary human, your ordinary next-door neighbor, so to speak.
Yeah, wonderful. Jenny asks about Hokusai's process, and do you know if he spent a long time making each painting? Was he very slow and methodical, or did he work more quickly?
That depends on the painting. Hokusai was very compulsive, I would say, mad about painting, right? I mean, he was, just by the very number of works that he produced, I mean, by some counts, there are about 30,000 works of art that he made, including prints, of course, which come in not just single works, but multiples oftentimes. But a painting, let's say a painting like Boy Viewing Mount Fuji, would take longer than the little paintings of the demon queller that he would make every morning, of course. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it took a terribly long time either. I mean, it really depends how long an artist would take in order to lay out the composition, for example. I mean, you would first sketch out the composition in very thin lines of ink onto silk in this case, or paper in other cases, and then slowly add in paintings. And we know that Hokusai started often with the faces because he considered those to be the most important part of his subjects. In this case, we don't have a face, so we don't know what he could have perhaps started with in filling in the colors, so to speak. But in terms of time, it's hard to say. But my estimation would be that you could complete a painting like this in 1 or 2 days if you wanted. But you could take much longer than that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you for answering all the questions that have been coming in. And we really appreciate your time and being here today. Thank you to Phil for beautifully guiding us through the painting and inviting us to look so carefully and so thoughtfully at this artwork. I think it's a wonderful reminder for all of us to slow down and let nature speak to us. Very important. I hope you'll all come back and join us again next Friday. So until then, take care, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.